Yo, what is up, guys? Shinobi here, back again with another video for you guys. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are back here with another video. Now, in today's video, we are covering a little bit something different. This is going to be definitely anime related. And before we even get into this, because I already know there's going to be certain people in the comments probably talking nonsense. No, I'm not trying to gatekeep or talk about who can watch anime or whatever. Anime is a medium for everybody. Anybody can get into it. There's plenty of genres and all sorts of stuff. But what we're talking about here today is mostly about something different. And for anybody who knows about the news, the Frieren director basically called out shonen fans in a nutshell, talking about how, in the day and age that we live in now, with anime especially being mainstream, nobody really cares about the story no more. It is a bunch of shonen fans basically who just care about the action and the fights and the animation, and nobody actually cares about the story anymore. And he ain't wrong. He ain't wrong. And the start of this, I would say, was in 2020 when anime became really, really mainstream. 2019, when Demon Slayer really started popping up, was when it started going crazy. But it wasn't until 2020. It was like a domino effect. It wasn't until 2020 when everybody got stuck inside. Demon Slayer was going crazy. Bleach had just gotten announced, obviously, for Thousand Year Blood War and a bunch of other stuff. It wasn't until 2020 though when anime really started to catch mainstream relevancy, because people who would have never even bothered to touch it, people who would have never even think about touching anime, decide to finally give it a shot, and then here we are. And then obviously within the last 5 years, we have stuff like Demon Slayer, JJK, obviously you got, Chainsaw Man going kind of crazy, Frieren going crazy, Bleach obviously blew its way back into the mainstream after like 10 years of nothing, all of that good stuff. But what this is mostly talking about is, I would say, not literacy. I would say it's mostly talking about how, anime now these days, it's more focused on the fights, the animation, and while that's good, it doesn't care about nobody really cares about the story no more. Like, if you ask the average anime fan now if they care about the story of a lot of these anime, they don't care. They mostly care about the fights and the animation. And that's mostly what we're going to be talking about today. Now, obviously, people get into anime for different things, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing to like anime for animation and fights, but that's not all it's about. And obviously, we had Dragon Ball, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Bakugan, Beyblade, and all that. And yes, they were popular, and anime was popular at that point in time, but we were talking about a time when anime was only starting to slowly inch into the mainstream. It was also during that point in time when people still, once again, didn't exactly accept anime. You didn't really see celebrities talking about it or anything like that. It wasn't until 2020 when that started happening. And, the Frieren author or director, was starting to call that out. And I'm not surprised he is, especially considering that Frieren got robbed at the Crunchyroll, Anime Awards, which we all knew were rigged. And they actually admitted that shit. Like, the people who were actually in charge of doing the judging, even talked about that. And hilariously enough, in Japan, guess what won the award? It was Frieren. It was Frieren that won the Anime of the Year award, not Solo Leveling. And Solo Leveling actually, hilariously enough, did not even get into like the top 100, if I'm correct. I might have to go back and look, but for that whole awards thing, they didn't make top 100. So that's kind of what we're talking about here. A little bit of a touchy subject, I know, but, I don't think he's wrong, honestly, because I come from a time when people cared about the story and the fights and the animation. That's kind of what I judge my anime off. It's like, animation, fights, is the story decent? Like, is it good? And even then, a lot of anime back then, if you really want to go there, had not the greatest animation in the world. We know this, but the story was so good. The story was so good. Like, you're not going to compare the OG, Dragon Ball animation from like 19 whenever and say that it's on par with anything now in the 2020s. But the story was there. The story of Goku's adventure to go and, get all the Dragon Balls, fight Piccolo and all that. Boom. Great. Naruto's story, obviously, early 2000s. The animation ain't looking as crisp as it is now. But the story's there. Bleach, obviously, same thing. One Piece is still ongoing, and we've seen the evolution of One Piece's animation from when it first started out to now. But the story is there. And people actually cared about that kind of shit. Hell, Attack on Titan, one of the greatest examples of this. Not the greatest animation of all time, but the story was there. And the animation also went with it and everything else. And that's why it's widely acclaimed as one of the best anime out there right now. Like, versus now, where you got stuff like, obviously I'm not saying Demon Slayer story is bad, but that's not what people talk about when it comes to Demon Slayer. People only talk about the animation and the fights when it comes to Demon Slayer. When it comes to JJK, it's about the animation and the fights. Nobody cares about the story no more. And that's what Frieren's director is talking about here.
When he states popular trends in anime. If you've been watching anime for a long time, you definitely know, you definitely have seen it, and it's clear that he's talking about battle shonen, he's talking about new anime fans, he's talking about the rise of certain anime in the last 5 or so years, and there's a lot of examples I can outline to kind of showcase what he's talking about, and so let's get into that first. First off, we gotta look at, where this really all started, at least, when anime started to blast into the mainstream. Demon Slayer. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to point out, like, Dragon Ball was very popular, Pokemon and stuff like that, and yes, they have a place, they are very popular. Not going to act like they aren't. However, we have to admit that anime wasn't, like, overwhelmingly popular, and wasn't
anime didn't hit the mainstream
of the world
until like
Demon
2019, 2020.
Exploded, and everybody started to talk about it. And then it was a systematic domino effect. Once Demon Slayer came out in 2019, COVID hit, and a lot of people that never would have touched anime, never would have ever given anime the time or day, or manga chapter a time or day to read, sat down and for the first time experienced anime and manga culture, because they had nothing better to do. They were sitting in their house, bored, didn't really have anything else, there was probably nothing good on Netflix or anything, so they decided to sit down and watch Demon Slayer. And
yeah, that's basically it. Like, you go back to, like, sometime, I can remember it like it was yesterday, bro. Like, you go back to, like, sometime like 2017, 2016, or even any time like that, and you try to mention anime to anybody who doesn't really know about it like that, like they didn't grow up with it, they don't know anything about it, bro, I'm not gonna lie to you, you're gonna get some looks. I'm not gonna lie to you, you're gonna get some looks, bro. They're not either that or they're just not gonna know what you're talking about. They're just not gonna know what you're talking about. Maybe if you mention Goku and Dragon Ball, maybe if you mention Pokemon, but back then I don't think people considered Pokemon as an anime. I don't think, even with the X and Y anime going crazy at that time period and everything, I don't think people considered it an anime. If you knew what anime was, you probably considered it an anime, but if they didn't know what anime was, they probably thought Pokemon was just a cartoon. So he ain't wrong there.
This is a cascading effect. Everything that, came out after Demon Slayer has been relatively similar. Now, obviously, there is some things that stand out amongst the crowd that is different from, let's say, Demon Slayer, JJK, Soul Leveling, Chainsaw Man. Frieren is a good example, since it's kind of what started this conversation. But when you look at the vastness of how popular anime has come, especially in the last 5 to 6 years, stuff like Frieren is a drop in the bucket. It is something that has a very small community or niche community in comparison to everything else. We like to think that Frieren is incredibly popular. We like to think that Frieren is overwhelmingly popular to the same level as maybe Soul Leveling or Demon Slayer, but that is so far from the truth. We're dead wrong. And the reason for this is a recent example.
Soul Leveling has a huge fan base. Like, even before the anime even came out, people were talking about it. Like, people before it got popular, people were already like, I knew about Soul Leveling. I didn't talk about it a lot, but I knew about Soul Leveling, obviously Korean stuff, before it was even a thing. Like, before it even became an anime and everything like that. So that's why when it got announced that Soul Leveling was getting an anime, I was hype as fuck. Because I was like, holy shit. Like, I was hype as hell. And then obviously the ore farming and everything like that, the Igris fight went crazy, and then we got season 2, and now here we are. But Soul Leveling already had a crazy fan base beforehand, just with, what they had in just like the manga or whatever. Like, they already had their own thing going. Like, it was already popular as hell.
This year, actually, the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. Now, I'm not going to bring up old drama and try to say Crunchyroll rigged it or not, but one of the big indications from that award that showed everyone is that anime fans that typically watch stuff like Frieren, or watch Welcome to the NHK, Steins Gate, Takapi, whatever, We're in the minority now. Most.
I'm gonna be real when I say the fact that Ninja Kamui won an award should tell you everything, bro. Ninja Kamui got an award with one good episode. If that don't say something, I don't know what does, bro. Demon Slayer beating One Piece and Bleach for best continuing series with season 4 of Demon Slayer, or season 3 of Demon Slayer. It only had one really good episode. That was it. That's all it took. Solo Leveling beating Bleach, and I forgot who else, somebody else, for best score with one good song in season 1. Because keep in mind, we're talking about season 1 of Solo Leveling. Now, I don't know about you, but Bleach, as far as score goes, has some of the best score out there right now, bro. Like, you know, when you hear Aizen's theme, people going crazy. You know, when you hear, the theme that Ichigo puts on, the Hollow theme, that's what it's called. It's called Hollowed. When he puts that freaking Hollow mask on, you know that shit about to go crazy. The Ichigo, the freaking Nothing But the Rain, bruh. When Zangetsu starts talking about how he hates the rain. Like, what are we talking about? And don't get me wrong, Solo Leveling had some good OSTs, but the only one I could really give to him off of that first season was Arya. That was the only good one. That was the one that everybody was talking about. But everything other than that, nobody was really talking about the score like that. Like, that's literally what really revealed everything, bro. I'm telling you.
Anime fans, newcomers into the genre, typically only watch what's popular. Typically what explodes on TikTok or social media platforms, what big content creators start talking about, and then they dive into it. For instance, JJK or Solo Leveling, for instance. And so that's the point here, is that typically, as trends go, what's popular is what's going to be talked about and what these companies are going to prioritize, what they're going to focus on and put all their resources into.
Yep.
And Frieren losing like it did really showcased this, because anyone that sat down and watched it and all the conversation around it, I think heavily agrees that it is
Frieren should have won. As far as anime of the year goes, Frieren should have won that shit. Frieren should have won that shit. I mean, once again, in Japan, Solo Leveling did even make it to the, season 1 specifically. Solo Leveling did not even make it into the top 100, bro. It didn't even make it. It didn't even make it, man. And not to mention, if you just look at everybody else's reactions about how, Frieren got robbed, everybody was in agreement that Frieren should have won that shit. Solo Leveling Season 1 was good. It was decent. And if we were talking about Season 2 of Solo Leveling, sure, maybe you could put Season 2 of Solo Leveling up there with Frieren. But Season 1, where the only thing that people really talked about was maybe the scene, there was maybe 2 or 3 great scenes that people were really talking about in Solo Leveling Season 1. And that is the scene when Sun Jin-woo goes crazy and kills all 5 of those guys with the Arya song playing in the background. And the Igris fight. That was it. Those were the only 2 big moments that people were really talking about. That was the only time I ever saw Solo Leveling Season 1 really going crazy like that. Outside of that, that's it. And as far as the song goes, as far as the score, once again, Arya was the only song that I know of right now that people actually talked about. So once again, people just voting for Solo Leveling just because it's Solo Leveling without using their brain cells to think about it. Once again, that's what they talk about when it comes to bias. Because a lot of the vote was a fan vote. Not to mention Crunchyroll also had Solo Leveling on there. So considering it brought in the most viewership during that time, no big surprise. No big surprise there. But, yeah. Yeah, the big thing though was Demon Slayer, taking I don't know. Me personally, Demon Slayer beating One Piece and Bleach for best continuing series is crazy. I understand why Bleach didn't win though, because Bleach was just never gonna win any award at that show. It never will win an award at the Crunchyroll show. Because the more I think about it, it's not even on Crunchyroll. It's not on Crunchyroll. It's on Hulu and Disney Plus. So why would it win an award at a Crunchyroll show? It's not on Crunchyroll.
In the last decade. It's hands down like in my top 10. It is a great show, so many life lessons, so many things to learn from it. It's fantastic. It is honestly a nice traditional fantasy, stuff that honestly just reminds you so much of Lord of the Rings, and if it reminds me of Lord of the Rings, that's a massive victory in my book. But the point is that obviously these companies in Japan, these Western companies and everything, they have seen how much money anime can make. We've had records being beat back to back over years now to where the Japanese, anime industry is just expanding. There's so much money being funneled into it. There's so much, products being bought by people around the world that it is now a massive moneymaker. I don't know necessarily if it's the biggest moneymaker in Japan, but it's probably definitely in the top 5.
It's got to be in the top 5. I think they did a whole announcement with Dragon Ball where it's like Goku specifically, like, is just holding up Japan's economy big time. I don't know how much of it, but I'm pretty sure that Goku by himself is holding up so much of Japan's economy that if they were to stop making Dragon Ball stuff, their economy would actually see a problem. Like, it's big. Anime is huge.
Had to say in terms of merchandise and just marketing and money being funneled into Japan or funneled out of Japan and other people buying from other countries for their products, anime definitely is there. And I think that in general, a lot of these companies, Western companies like Netflix and stuff, have noticed this and they're trying to dive into the pie, get their slice of the pie and get a lot of money. And so what the director is necessarily saying here is that because of how the world works and how companies work in general, Disney is a good recent example since we had stuff like that being called out recently. They're going to chase trends. They're going to chase things that are going to be able to make easy money, which is
why you ended up having Disney Plus starting to try and acquire anime. That's why they got Bleach off of Crunchyroll. Crunchyroll folded the bag. Crunchyroll would still have Bleach right now if they didn't fumble the bag, but Disney's just got that money. Disney's just got that money for real, and that's why Bleach is on Disney Plus and Hulu right now instead of Crunchyroll like it used to be on. That's also why you can't find any of the Bleach episodes on Crunchyroll anymore, because they got bought out. And one of the big concerns was that Disney would fumble the bag like they did Summertime Rendering. Now, luckily, we know that didn't happen, but the incident with Summertime Rendering is that it was a really popular anime. It was a really, really popular anime, but when it went onto Disney Plus, it just kind of got shafted for real. And that was like the biggest thing. That's why you had the whole thing at one point where it was like people didn't even want Bleach to go to Disney Plus because they didn't want it to get shafted. They did not want to see one of the big three getting shafted. Now, luckily, once again, we know that didn't happen, and Bleach is doing fine right now. And it's made probably its biggest comeback after 10 years of doing nothing, bro. Like, no manga. Like, literally, the manga's finished. We got the one shot, obviously, and, we got the Burn the Witch and the Hell Arc and whatnot. But outside of that, it was like we weren't really getting anything for like 10 years. Like, Bleach Very Souls was holding us together for 10 years. So seeing Bleach Thousand Year Blood War come back, and then Disney Plus wants to get into the piece of the pie because obviously Bleach, is a really popular IP, and then on top of that, anime is blowing up. It was like one of those things where it's like, holy shit, now Disney is getting into anime? When the fuck did they start doing that? At that point in time, I didn't even know about it until people started talking about Summertime Rendering and how it got shafted. So it's just one of those things that like a lot of companies now are trying to get into the pie. We already saw that Netflix, they already had the whole thing where they made that whole One Piece movie recently, and that popped off.
Why Disney has tried to make basically very safe stuff for a very long time with the MCU or their movies. It's because they rather make easy money than be experimental and do something relatively unique. Now, obviously, this doesn't always work because Disney is now starting to feel issues from that. Their latest movie box office.
Right now Disney's kind of getting cooked. Disney's kind of getting cooked right now because the MCU is basically cooked. The MCU is basically cooked. And as far as Star Wars, they just destroyed Star Wars somehow. I don't know how they managed to do that. Star Wars is cooked too. So like two of their biggest IPs already cooked. and they just haven't been doing too well.
Releases and money they're getting. But the point is that it's clear that the anime industry is becoming that. It's morphing into that slowly. With the news with Kadokawa trying to increase production budgets, with Kadokawa trying to basically cater more to the West.
Funny enough, Kadokawa actually announced recently, and this might be surprising to some of y'all, but Kadokawa really recently announced that Sword Art Online is still their top anime right now. Sword Art Online is still their top anime out there. So for any of y'all hating on SAO, I don't care how much y'all hate on that shit, but before we had Sunjimu, we had Kirito the fucking Black Swordsman, the GOAT. Sword Art Online still has a really huge fan base too. It's just that we haven't had anything yet. We've had some games here and there, but we need that Unito ring. And they announced that they're supposed to be having a movie coming out pretty soon.
It's obvious that these companies are trying to get in line and just become more focused on the global market than anything else because there's more money to be made.
Yep.
And basically, anime is losing what made it popular to begin with. It being anime, being Japanese, made for the Japanese, and just people that, get into it are enjoying it. But it's clear that anime is now starting to play it a lot more safer and try to cater itself not just to the Japanese audience, but to an entire global audience, which I think is going to be disastrous in the long run.
It is. It will. It will. Losing your identity will destroy what you once had. We see this in a lot of different mediums. In gaming, Halo lost its identity, and that's why Halo's in the situation that it's in right now, struggling. Star Wars lost its identity. It's no longer about the Force no more. It's no longer talking about the galaxy, good versus evil. Now it's about identity politics and bullshit that nobody cares about. The concept of the Force, they don't even care about that shit no more. Marvel and DC, or I think just Marvel right now. Just the MCU is just all sorts of fucked up. Same thing. Identity politics bullshit. And anime, once again, I don't think it's in that direction yet, but it is kind of heading in that direction where now we're more focused on just the animation and the action more so than the story. We're out here trying to focus on what Western audiences want instead of just going and sticking with what made anime, anime in the first place. That's what made it popular. Like, people are forgetting to, like these companies in pursuit of money and in pursuit of a profit are forgetting what made their IP popular in the first place. They're not looking back and being like, what made anime so popular in the first place? Why did people even get into it in the first place? People are forgetting about that. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing right now.
And it's going to lose the point of why anime became popular to begin with. And so when you have directors like this, for instance, the Frieren director, outright just talking about the situation, explaining their thought patterns on it, how they don't like the bias towards popular trends, it's not a disgruntled director or animator being upset about this. It's more of an insider seeing where the industry is going, seeing that the industry is shaping into only focusing on projects like JJK or Chainsaw Man or Demon Slayer, than focusing on projects like Toxicity or Frieren. Because let's be honest here, anyone that's watched Frieren or even Toxicity, one of the recent examples that came out this season, I think we can all agree Toxicity is incredible. Great anime.
Never watched it. I've watched Frieren, Bill. I've watched Frieren and it's fucking peak. I don't know about Toxicity, but I've watched Frieren and it's peak. How Solo Leveling Season 1 beat that out for Anime of the Year is beyond me. Season 2 is a whole different story. Let me get that straight before anybody starts yapping. Season 2 of Demon Slayer, that's a different story. Season 1, hell no.
I think we all, if you've watched it, can agree on that. However, in terms of money it's probably made, it is so minuscule, a drop in the bucket in comparison to what, let's say, Chainsaw Man or JJK can pump out. That it prints money, so to speak. But Toxicity, for instance, won't, despite how much love and passion was put into that project, and regardless of how it is a masterclass of a show, why would any company want to focus so heavily on something that isn't going to sell as much as, let's say, something that's safer, like Demon Slayer? So you can see the issue here. Now, I do want to go on record and say that Battle Shonen has always been popular.
That is facts.
I'm not saying it isn't.
Battle Shonen has always been, the main thing that people talk about. I mean, once again, we had Dragon Ball, we had Bleach, we had, the big three in general are, the prime examples of this. Naruto, Dragon Ball, Bleach. And if you want to even go before then, we had stuff like Sailor Moon, We still had stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. We still had stuff like Yu Yu Hakusho, Inuyasha. You know, Battle Shonen has just always been that way. And I know technically Sailor Moon specifically is just like, that's like magical girls and shit, but they've always been kind of like Battle Shonen-ish somewhat. Like, hell, you even look at something like Madoka Magica, that's just heavily popular in Japan. Like, Madoka Magica is just up there in popularity. And magical girls in general, bro. Like, so many anime, even stuff like Bleach, have taken stuff from that. And hell, technically, Saint Seiya, like, bro, Kubo's inspiration, or one of his biggest inspirations, people probably don't even know this, for Bleach was Saint Seiya. Like, people like to talk about how Bleach is a Yu Yu Hakusho ripoff, or talking about how it's this ripoff or whatever. None of y'all are correct in the first place, because Kubo took his freaking inspiration from Saint Seiya. But that's besides the point. The point is that Battle Shonen has always been popular. That's just the thing. People love watching the fights, the animation, the transformations and all of that. That's not a problem either. Like, nobody's saying that's a problem. What the problem is now people are focusing more on that, just that specific thing, because it makes profits over the entirety of what made anime in the first place. People are playing the safe route instead of actually experimenting now. And that's causing stuff like, obviously, in this case, Frieren or others that focus more so with also its fights, but also its story, to kind of get sidelined a bit. Well, yeah, the anime will be popular, but it ain't the shit that makes money, so we're just gonna ignore that shit. We're gonna cater towards the people who want to just see the animation and the fights more so than the people who actually want the animation, the fights, and the story, which is what made anime popular in the first place. Dragon Ball wasn't just popular because obviously, we got the fights and, the transformations and whatnot. It was also about the story, the character development, everything else that made the anime what it was. And the reason I'm explaining this is because maybe some people might not know this, but that's what made Dragon Ball popular, along with all the rest of the big threes. It was, and others as well. We didn't just get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Just for the card games. We got into it because of the story, and everything else too. We didn't just get into Pokemon because of how popular it was. It was also because of we wanted to see Ash become champion, We didn't just get into something like, for instance, Beyblade just because it looked cool, though that was one of the main reasons. It was also because for majority of us, the story. We wanted to see Jinga become the best, or we wanted to see Ryuga, become the best, or whatever it may be. It was all about the story. Took a huge place in why a lot of these anime are where they are today, and it is. And we're kind of leaning towards now, where we're kind of filtering it towards now. We're just headed towards a time now where only the Battle Shonen, only the ones where maybe the rest of the anime is all right, but that they have one or two good moments, and that blows everything up, kind of thing. Once again, One Piece and Bleach both got robbed at the Crunchyroll Awards, with Demon Slayer beating both of them for Best Continuing Series with one episode. Ninja Kamui won an award, even though everybody sees that anime is garbage, with one episode. One good episode. That was all that won. That's why people call it the Aura Farming Awards, not really the Crunchyroll Anime Awards, because it was basically who Aura farmed the most. And in that case, people only really cared about the one good episode with Igris for Solo Leveling, and Ninja Kamui got what it got. And other anime that not only had good fights and animation, but also had a good story, kind of got sidelined. That's what people are talking about right now.
There's a reason why Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, and stuff is incredibly popular. There's a reason for that. But it was still, like I said, a hot pot. There was so much to choose from. But now it seems like that hot pot is getting mixed with only one ingredient, and it's
Battle
messing up
Shonen.
the entirety of the cook. It's just literally one thing. And I feel like a lot of anime companies are establishing themselves or gearing in to only making stuff that's similar to what is making money. So it's pretty sad, honestly. It just...
Hell, you could even say you could see that happen with Isekai recently. Like, obviously, we had Sword Art Online. That really started everything off. But you could really see that with Isekai. People started seeing that Isekai was going crazy. And all these studios just start pumping out crazy amounts of Isekai, even if they weren't even good, just to get in that money pot. You saw that happening a lot with Isekai, and that's kind of dropping off now. That's kind of dropping off, and that's what's going to happen to Battle Shonen. Keep that in mind. If people only start just putting out Battle Shonen because that what puts out money, and that's all we end up seeing, people are going to get sick of that, and then it's going to end up dying off. Not dying off entirely, but it's going to start slowing down because people are going to stop watching it. People are going to be like, oh, it's another Battle Shonen, whatever. Right now, people are only just recently started getting fatigued by just only the Battle Shonen stuff. Only recently. But it's getting to that point, man, where anime is kind of losing what makes it anime. Kind of just falling into the pit trap of, oh, this one certain thing makes money, so we're just going to keep doing this, and all the other companies are following the same trend. If we want to speak this into game terms, it's kind of like how Genshin Impact blew up in 2020, and then every other company saw what Genshin Impact did, even the bad practices, and basically copied it. Until Withering Waves broke the mold and started doing something slightly different. Or other games, for instance, like, Theory of Restart, or, fucking Everness to Neverness, and all this other stuff. Like, if we really want to go there. I could go for a lot of trends, honestly. But, that's what we're talking about here.
This once again shows that anime as a culture and industry is fundamentally changing and changed, and it will never go back to what it once was.
No, that's not going to happen.
As time progresses, we will see little things that stand out like Frieren or Toxicity come here and there over the years, but it'll become, I think, more and more rare as time goes on, as more series focus on the same trends that, has been popular for the last few years. It's basically kind of what happens with the gaming community. Like, you remember the whole zombie trend in the early 2010s?
Yep.
And then you had the Battle Royale
Battle Royales, yep.
There's always these trends, and I feel like that's kind of what's happening to anime, but
it's just one of those things where when something blows up, then everybody's going to copy it. Everybody's going to copy it, for better or for worse, because they want to get that money. They want to get their hands in the pie. They want to get their hands in the pie.
On a more mainstream level that will have disastrous effects for the entire industry and what studios actually focus on, because there's going to be a lot of stories and series that are going to be basically thrown to the side or just swept under the rug and never focused on, just to focus on something that could reach a wide appeal of an audience. That's what I think the future is. So yeah, I kind of wanted to talk about this. It's very fascinating, honestly, and I do want to show something, honestly, that does need to be called out that is relevant to this conversation, so let's switch to that. So this right here is a clip that graced my feed earlier today.
Oh, I saw this.
When I was,
I saw this. I saw this. Yeah, this has been happening a lot recently. I'm going to let him explain this. This has been happening a lot recently.
About to talk about this article here, but this clip in question is more or less a good example of what I've been talking about for years at this point, and how the anime community has changed, and you have the used to be bullies, people that would bully anime fans, diving into the anime community to change it within. And I'm just going to play about probably 10 seconds of this clip,
I saw
and
this.
you can kind of get a good grasp
I literally
of what
saw this today.
So let's just, let's play this real quick.
You own this, you need to be locked up. You ever put something like this in your cart, you need to be locked up. If you see this and don't see a problem with it, you should probably seek some help. Now, I understand this has always been a thing in the anime community, but at some point we have to draw a line somewhere. Y'all.
If I need to point out why this is wrong, I will. Let's explain. I'll make it very brief. These new fans that used to never care for anime, don't care about the culture, don't care to adapt to the culture or learn why people like anime or manga, they're coming into the communities and trying to force the will of anime and manga and light novels, whatever, to bend to their ideals of what they want, which gets into the conversation of the whole director thing. That these new fans are forcing these studios and animators and stuff to do what they want, this merchandise sales to do what they want, and if they don't do what they want, then they're gonna basically, be very upset. They're gonna pull a hissy fit, and they're going to, decry it or try to buzzword you to death. And in this
basically, it's kind of like how, with the gaming community, stuff that's been going on in gaming, has been going on for a long time. Like, for instance, the trash talk and everything like that. That had been going on for a while. And then now you got basically like Karens or people who don't give a fuck about gaming or just jumping into it now, trying to say that trash talk is bad and how they're trying to like tone police people and shit like that. It's kind of like that. Only difference is with anime. Like shit. Here's my thing. It's like the whole collective shout BS all over again. It's like the collective shout BS all over again if you really want to go there. Maybe you don't like the fact that people are buying this thing. Maybe in your eyes, maybe you don't like the fact that, you know, people are buying like a Nezuko statue that, you know, maybe whatever. But at the end of the day, if it's legal, it's legal. If it's not like some illegal nonsense, then who are you to say whether people can buy it or not? That's the gist of the whole entire thing. Who are you as a newgen, somebody who probably would never touch the anime with a 10-foot pole, coming in here to say that you should be locked up if you buy an anime figure? That's where the whole term like a while back like hood weeb or any of the other crap or these like that's where it came from. It's these people who are just now getting the anime, probably only been in the community for 5 or so years, and it's only because it's popular, trying to go and try and change the community because of stuff that they maybe not like. That's been in the community for like maybe over 20 years and hasn't done anything negative. I'm sorry. Maybe you don't like it, and that's fine. You don't have to buy it. But you over there trying to police people and trying to tell people what they can and cannot buy because maybe you don't like it is crazy. Because as far as I'm concerned, if it ain't illegal, then what the fuck is the problem? Because trust me, if it was illegal, guess what? It wouldn't be up. People wouldn't be able to fucking buy it. It's as simple as that. We already saw the garbage going on with the payment processors. So that's what he's talking about, is these new gens trying to come in into a fandom that they could care less about over the last 20 years, and then trying to change shit based off of stuff they don't like. Trying to basically apply their own, I would say, moral compass to shit that they could care less about 20 years ago. That's what people are talking about.
In this case, what this individual does throughout this entire clip is pretty much say that you're a pedo if you buy figures, fan service ecchi figures of characters. Yeah, we've gotten to that point. We've gotten to that point to where if you buy a figure of an anime, you're a weirdo. You should turn yourself into the police. That's crazy, man. This is the type of like new anime fans that we've been getting, and it's getting worse. You didn't see this type of stuff, honestly, pre-2020.
Nope.
You might have seen it here and there, but it was so little.
And honestly, it ain't just this. See, now I can start cooking. It ain't just this. It's also the nonsense with the big three. If you want to specifically talk about the big three, you ain't got people talking about kicking bleach out the big three until these new gens start popping up in here. It was popular to hate on Bleach back in 2012, sure, but nobody was talking about taking it out of the big three, and a lot of that bullshit was lies and garbage that people just made up anyways. But now, I can't go a day on this damn app, especially Twitter, without some dumbass child or some 12-year-old who just got into anime talking about how Bleach doesn't deserve to be in the big three and trying to replace it with something like Demon Slayer or JJK or fucking Solo Leveling. And don't even get me started with the power scaling bullshit. Back then, the only power scaling that people really cared about was Superman versus Goku. And we were playful about it. We didn't care. It was just a conversation. And even with other anime, people would just call it a conversation. But now you got whole people's YouTube channels, whole people's freaking TikTok accounts literally built on rage baiting people by having some stupid matchup talking about Sakura can beat fucking Goku, like Sakura can beat fucking this, that, the third, or Naruto's multiversal and all this other bullshit. It's literally just a bunch of rage baiting people, kids mostly, usually under the age of 18 or whatever, just making these really ridiculous claims and starting up bullshit in the community where there would be no. Usually, or if there was some, it was very little. It's literally, it's like, once again, it's this, power scaling, and then obviously, you know, you got the big three. That's the most that I've seen. That's like the biggest things that I've seen. And it's just been getting worse and worse over the time, bro. It's been getting worse and worse over time. I've even seen it where when the whole entire Crunchyroll Awards happened and they was talking about, solo leveling versus Frieren. We've seen it. I've seen it. And let me know down below if you guys have seen it, where you have some people talking about who cares about story. You got some people saying the story does not matter and that the only thing that should matter is fights and animation. That's what these new gens are on. That's the timing that these new gens are on right now. They only care about the fights. They only care about the animation. The story, who gives a shit? That's what we're looking at right now.
It was non-existent. But now, you see this like
every day.
Multiple times a day. Which is just sad, man. And
every day.
A lot of reasons why I think this is happening now, if I had to take an educated guess, I think there's two reasons to this. You have people that obviously believe this and think that it's weird and then people should be locked up for it. I also think there's another side of these clout chasers, people that know that it's going to get a reaction out of
rage
people.
Bait people.
Which obviously it's getting a
rage
reaction
bait.
out of me. And it's going to cause conversation around it.
It's rage
and
bait.
it's going to, get them clout. People basically are, honestly, this is probably the...
Like, bro, majority of anime Twitter right now, or at least one side of it, is just rage baiting. They'll put out some really stupid posts talking about some, especially with Bleach. Like right now, there's this whole thing on Twitter where you got Boruto fans trying to basically rage bait Bleach and Black Clover fans a lot, where they'll make up or they'll Photoshop some garbage ass freaking edit talking about Bleach has officially been removed out of the big three, or solo leveling has officially replaced Bleach out of the big three, or some bullshit like that. And it's just purely rage bait. That's literally it. That is basically what anime Twitter has kind of been reduced to, is a lot of rage bait from a bunch of kids who want clout. A bunch of new gen fans who see that anime is popular and just going up in there and causing problems for no reason, where there would normally, if you were to go back 10 years ago, even, would not be any. You wouldn't be seeing any of this. Hell, you wouldn't have seen any of this back in 2017. It wasn't until after 2020 where all this bullshit started popping up.
Best time to really say the word grifting. Actual grifters that are grifting on anime and manga content, saying things that they don't truly believe just to be able to make as much money or conversation around it. And that's what I think is honestly been going on with this topic. And I think it's getting worse because you now have a new generation of people that are getting into anime and manga that, are now having access to video recording cameras and stuff and social media to record and put the reactions online. And because you can easily monetize stuff nowadays online, that's what people are doing. They can just monetize these very rage-baiting, obvious things that are just going to piss people off to get as much money as possible. And it clearly works. I mean, there's a reason why you have like these prank channels and stuff that do absolutely horrific things and they keep getting worse and worse, is because people watch them, because people will still click on them. And it's just a really bad systematic effect I've seen getting worse and worse over the years. And this is
it's like the definition of slop content on YouTube, basically. Will people be posting out rage baity content or put out really ridiculous content because they know it'll get clicks and views, even though it's the same shit that everybody else is doing.
This is a really good example of that. But I want to leave it there. Just wanted to talk about this. Thank you so much for watching. Be safe, stay healthy.
It's the main reason why you'll see sometimes people talk about how they wish sometimes that anime didn't go mainstream and like it stayed the way that it was back in the early 2000s, or even I'd say 2017 or something like that. That's why you'll see people talk about that, because with anime becoming popular being a good thing, it also invited people like this to come in the community and start bullshit, and now we got to deal with it. And it's influencing, unfortunately, the anime community in a negative way. It's like the double sword effect. It's like, yeah, anime is popular now, it's more acceptable now, but now the normies, basically people who had never touched it before, are jumping on the bandwagon, and now coming in and trying to put their own bullshit in it, even though that's not what anime was about in the first place. And it's annoying to say the least. It's annoying to say the least. It's annoying to say the least. That's all I'm going to say. But, I feel like this is a really important conversation to talk about when it comes to anime, because I've been watching anime, I would say arguably since I was 5. I grew up with the Ghibli films, Spirited Away, Kiki's Delivery Service, so on, so forth, Totoro. You guys know, you know, and I've watched anime change and everything like that, and change is never a bad thing. But this kind of change is like there's levels to this shit. There really is. There's levels to this, and the way that the anime community and the way that it's looking right now, and the direction that it's headed in right now, it's not looking crazy good right now. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. It's looking pretty bad. Change has never been a bad thing. That's not what we're afraid of here. We're just afraid of it. We're afraid of anime losing basically what made anime in the first place. What even got us into it to begin with. And I mean, I guess we're just gonna have to see how this is going. Now look at that, another Roblox, video. Once again, the Roblox is fucked. But I just wanted to talk about this. Great video by Chibi Reviews. I feel like he pretty much hit the nail on its head with this. And yeah, you can tell even animators, the directors are getting tired of it. Yeah, everybody's getting tired of it. For people who have been sticking around with this culture before it was popular, everybody is getting tired of it. Like this, I feel like this is a great comment right here. It's fine to like shonen, but if you think that's all anime should be, you're sorely mistaken. This is literally the comment. This literally is it. This is it. This is it. He isn't calling out shonen fans. He's talking about the tourists and normies who got offended by yeah, that's also another kind of people. Yeah. Yeah. Once again, like you can see it in the comments right here. The worst thing from COVID is normies getting into anime. Like once again, I said it before. I said it before. Nobody cares that anime is popular. Nobody cares that, people are getting into it now that it's popular. The problem is that the people getting into it who never would have touched it with a 10-foot pole are now trying to act like they can tell people what they can't like about anime. Don't blame them. Bro, they're the straight-up work of art. Frieren, all to lose to the next aura farmer. Solo leveling. Love the anime, but it didn't deserve anime of the year. Exactly. Exactly. Exactly, bro. Exactly. Nobody says that Solo Leveling is a shitty anime, but did it deserve anime of the year? Fuck no. In the next couple of months or so, we're gonna have our next aura farmer, and it's gonna be the same shit. It's gonna be the same shit, bro. Like, it's gonna be Sun Jin Woo one second, and it's gonna be some other aura farming merchant the next second. And I don't know about you, but I don't think aura farming should be deciding whether an anime wins anime of the year or not. But hey, that's just me. But without further ado, I want to know your guys' thoughts on this. Once again, I got nothing against new gens, but let's be real. There's levels to this shit. There's levels to this shit. There are levels to this shit. But without further ado, I hope to see you guys in another video. Leave your comments, leave your thoughts, like the video, subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.